أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وقال لهم نبيهم إن الله قد بعث لكم طالوت ملكا قالوا أنى يكون له الملك علينا ونحن أحق بالملك منه ولم يؤت سعة من المال قال إن الله اصطفاه عليكم وزاده بسطة في العلم والجسم والله يؤتي ملكه من يشاء والله واسع عليم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ثم ما بعد, once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, inshallah, we're picking up from where we left off a few weeks ago, which is Surah Ayah number 246, and today's Ayah number 247 of Surah al-Baqarah, in which the story of the Prophet of Bani Israel who told them, they came to him and said, pick us a king. Ib'ath lana malikan nuqatil fi sabilillah, appoint a king to us and we'll fight in Allah's path. That story of the Israelites is continuing. And in this ayah, as I mentioned to you before, he's about to kind of disappoint their aspirations. They were hoping that one of them would get picked, as I mentioned last time. But instead, he says, the Prophet says, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ, their Prophet said to them, إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. No doubt about it, Allah in fact is the one who has already appointed, and certainly has appointed, Talut for you as a king. Now there are a few things to note here on the language, from the language perspective. Their Prophet said to them, Allah highlights again, نَبِيُّهُمْ. You don't have to mention the fa'il. You can say, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَث. Meaning if you read a passage and you read, he said to them, when you say he said to them, it's still obvious that it's the Prophet who was talking to them, because there are only two parties in this conversation. But Allah highlighted nabiyuhum again. Now the purpose of highlighting an obvious subject again, rhetorically speaking, is to express the shock at the fact that they couldn't get it through their head that the one talking to them is their Prophet. They should have more regard for what he has to say. It seems as though they didn't really take into consideration that it's their Prophet talking to them. You know, and the idafa here, nabiyyun lahum. If you notice, إِذْ قَالُوا لِنَبِيٍّ لَهُمْ, it was before, لِنَبِيٍّ لَهُمْ, it was a separation of lam. What that does is a prophet of theirs. But now that prophet is given a more strong bond with them, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ. Now that you've come to the Prophet, you've come and asked his advice, there's a closer relationship between you and him, so the idafa is made. These are the benefits of the Arabic language, to understand these subtleties in the language. So anyhow, إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَث. No doubt about it, it is Allah. Inna is used in Arabic, لِإِزَالَةِ الشَّكِّ, as I keep saying in many talks. إِزَالَةُ الشَّكِّ means to remove doubt. In other words, he already anticipates when he says who the appointee is, they're going to be like, are you serious? I mean, come on, really? Him? You got to be mistaken. So he begins his statement with a declaration so that there's no room for questioning his declaration. He says, Inna Allah. Now in common Arabic, you say, Inna Allah ba'atha. Inna Allah ba'atha. Or if you want to emphasize, you say, Qad ba'atha Allahu. Either you say inna, and you put the mubtada first, or you say qad if you want to emphasize a jumla fi'liya, if you want to emphasize a verb. So you say qad ba'ath Allah. What does this Prophet do? He says, Inna Allah qad ba'atha. So he used both forms. The form of emphasis necessary for a nominal sentence and the form of emphasis necessary for a verbal sentence. What that means in simple English is, he couldn't possibly emphasize this more. He couldn't possibly say, look, I am telling you for sure it is Allah, and in fact, He is the one who appointed ba'atha Taluta malikan, Talut as a king. Then even the word ba'ath. Al-ba'ath they use in Arabic, ba'athahu min manamihi, ahabbahu wa iqadahu. When you wake someone up, and put them on alert. This is ba'athani. You know, in modern Arabic we say ayqadha, to wake somebody up. But ba'atha is to wake somebody up that, you know, that wasn't expected that he was going to be woken up. When our Prophet ﷺ is mab'uth, he's a Nabi al-mab'uth, or he says, inni bu'ithtu mu'alliman, kama yaqulu Rasul ﷺ, right? When he says that, what does that mean? That he was among the people and you couldn't tell him apart from other people, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's turned into a prophet. So the quality was inside of him. He didn't even know that he was going to be picked as a messenger, and shockingly, he's been picked. So this is the idea of al-ba'ath. Al-ba'ath, by the way, is also used for this shocking appointment, is also used for resurrection. So Yawmul Ba'ath is one of the names of the day of resurrection. Why? Because we're going to be sleeping, unexpected in our graves, and out of nowhere, we're elevated, we're raised. Okay? So now this idea of appointing someone unexpected, this is in the word ba'atha. Allah could have said ikhtara, istafa. There are other verbs available. He chose him. He appointed him. Haddadahu, ayyanahu. But he said ba'atha, which implies that there's a shock to him also, like really me, and to everybody else. It's completely unexpected. And then he adds lakum taluta malikan. There's another subtle nuance here. The language expected is ba'atha taluta malikan lakum. The lakum is actually expected at the end. This is called al-maf'ul al-muqaddam. Jar majroor muqaddam. Why put it muqaddam? Because this is for your own good that he's been picked. The benefit of that sequencing in Arabic is it's for your own good that Talut has been picked as a king. In other words, you guys, I can already tell, as soon as I tell you this news, you're going to think this is against you, this is a stab at you, this is somehow undermining your authority. You were hoping one of you gets picked. Remember the elite came to him and said, pick us a king, and they were pretty confident it's going to be one of them. And they were just looking for religious validation. But when this news comes, it's going to be a pretty bad shocker that none of them won the election. None of them got the appointment. So he says, just before you start complaining, let me tell you, this appointment is for whose benefit? Yours more than anybody else's. And he's not even talking to the entire group of Israelites. He's talking only to the chiefs, the ministers that came to him. Al-Mala, who came to him. He's saying even it's for your own good. In other words, Allah is revealing to this Prophet ﷺ that Talut was not just picked as the best leader for the people, but he was also the best choice for even the corrupt leaders. You guys, if you pick someone among you, you're going to eat each other alive. You're going to destroy each other. You are not only going to destroy the nation, you'll also destroy each other. The best savior for you is this one. This is Allah's choice, Taluta Malikan. So Allah has appointed Talut for you as a king. Now He could have stopped at Inna Allah qad ba'atha lakum Talut. He picked Talut for you. Enough. That's enough. But Allah adds a tamyiz, Allah adds a distinction. He picked him for you as a king, as a general. Why that distinction? First of all, they asked for a king. But this Prophet ﷺ wants to leave no stone unturned. He wants to make sure you guys understand. If I say Allah picked him, they'll say, yeah, Allah picked him as a good person. Allah picked him as a leader. Allah picked him as a leader for the people to give khutbah and to give talks, to lead the salat maybe. But He didn't pick him as a general over us. Seriously, come on, look at him. So the Prophet leaves no stone unturned and spells it out. Taluta malikan. Qalu, the ayah is not over yet. They respond, Qalu, anna yakunu lahu al-mulku alayna. Now you have to understand something about the word anna. In modern Arabic, I see some students sitting here. How do you say how? How? You say kayfa. You say kayfa. But when kayfa is shocking, then you say anna. How come? Whoa, wait. How does that work? How does that work? Like, you say normally, how in a normal sense. How's your day going? It's not a shocking thing. You say, how are you? Kayf al-hal. You don't say, anna al-hal. You don't do that because you're not shocked to ask the question. You just say, kayf al-hal. But the anna, like Allah says, for example, anna yuhyi hadhihi Allah ba'da mawtiha. Shocking ayah. The person listening to it is in shock. So we already read these ayat. How will Allah raise after the dead? How will Allah bring this back to life? Anna yuhyi hadhihi al-ard ba'da mawtiha. Allah asks shocking question. Anna yufakun. Where do they think they're? How are they turned away? How in the world? So this idea of, probably the good English translation of this would be, how in the world? How in the world? So they said, أَنَّا يَكُونُ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ عَلَيْنَا. How in the world is he going to have kingdom, kingship, authority, dominion, sovereignty over us. How in the world is that possible? First of all, who's this guy? Who is this Talut guy? We don't know him. He's not from any of our classes. He does not live in our gated community. He's not one of the wealthy. He's not one of the rich and famous. Nobody knows this guy. You just brought him out of the village from that, like the ghetto neighborhood, where they don't even have an HOA, where they don't even mow their lawns. When you see like 1982 cars parked in the garage. That's the neighborhood where you got him from. How in the world is he going to hold office? And the presidency of all things. Really, seriously, can you pick somebody else? Where does this guy work? At a car shop? Where does he work? At a store changing tires? He's a nobody. He's a cashier at Walmart. What's he gonna do? Well, don't bring him into politics. Politics is for people who graduate from Harvard, people who have elite degrees, people who have a few $1 million in savings accounts, who have a retirement plan, who have real estate, who have multiple businesses. They have investments in the stock exchange. They're people of substance. This guy, come on. Honestly. There's like 1,000 of these that work for me. You picked one of those guys to come? And then the truth came out. They said, وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ. We are more deserving of kingship than he is. We are more deserving. They didn't start the conversation that way. If you recall the last ayah, they said, you pick a prophet for us. We will fight in Allah's path. But what they had inside was, it's got to be one of us. When it came out that it's not going to be one of y'all, then they're like, wait, hold on. We are more deserving of al-mulk, of kingdom, than he is. And then, on what basis can you say that you're more deserving than he is? You've got to have some explanation. You've got to be able to give some kind of, plausible reasoning behind why he shouldn't be picked. One of us should be picked. So they say, وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. And he hasn't been given. It's very clever language. Wallahi, Allah captures so much of political psychology in this ayah. It's incredible. وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً. And he has not been given. And there's a difference between saying he doesn't have. وَلَيْسَ لَهُ مَالٍ. He doesn't have money. مَا لَهُ مِنْ مَالٍ. He doesn't have any money. لَمْ يُؤْتَ. He hasn't been given. That's the passive form. When you use the passive form, you're saying Allah is the one who gives wealth. Allah decided we should be wealthy. Allah decided he should be poor. It is divine will that we should be leaders, and it's divine will that he should be working as nobody. This is God's will, man. God wanted us to be rich, and he wanted us to be in power. You're fighting Allah's will. Now they're going to teach the Prophet what Allah's will is. Like Allah says in Surah Al-Hujurat to the Muslims, قُلْ أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ. Oh, you're going to teach Allah your religion. Oh, I see. Allah asked that question in Surah Al-Hujurat. This is the same idea. يُؤْتَى لَمْ يُؤْتَى. He hasn't been given. سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَاءِ. And sa'a, there's another interesting word. Sa'a comes from wus'a. It's the shorter version of it. Wus'a means expanse. At-tafassuh, openness. Okay? It's the lid, it's the opposite of naqid al-dayyiq or al-diq, tightness. So what they're saying is, this guy lives check to check. He doesn't even have enough money to even save a little bit of money. He makes the money and he uses it to eat his food and feed his family, and he's out of money. He's got to work again. Then he's got to make the money to feed the family, and he misses one day of the week and he doesn't have enough money to pay the rent, to keep the lights on in the house, to buy the groceries. This guy's living hand to mouth. That's what he's living. You want him to enter politics? Honestly? وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. And this, by the way, was the only criterion the corrupt politicians presented for why he is not a legitimate candidate. This is the only reason. He does not have what? Money. He lives hand to mouth. Look at modern politics. This is old, right? This is supposed to be an old, ancient text that has no relevance to our times, and nothing of this applies today because, religion is pre-modern. What happens to people that join, presidential campaigns and can't raise enough campaign funds? The media discounts them immediately because they say he was only able to raise 2 million. And his competitors already raised 40 million. This one's out. And the entire rationale for why one is not qualified and the other is qualified is وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. 100%. 100%. This is the rationale that is used till today in corrupt politics. Why should that be a criteria for who is qualified for leadership? After all, as Ibn Ashur pointed out, money that somebody has is something they gathered for who? Themselves. When you go into public office, the idea of public office or public services, you're going to be working for who? Others. You're not going to be working for yourself. You got into public service entirely motivated by the idea that you are not interested in serving yourself, you are interested in serving the other. That is the idea of public service. Today, we find the one who has demonstrated the most greed and the most self-promotion should be worthy of the highest offices in public service. It's actually, from an ethical perspective, from a common sense perspective, even pretty contradictory. It doesn't add up. And some things that are so basic to common sense, now we don't even question. Yet we can have the most advanced statistics on things, and we can go into nuance upon nuance upon nuance of political trends. But the thing that's glaring right in front of us, someone who's like drowned in greed, how can they be concerned for, the other? And by the way, forget the fact that they're not going to care about someone else. They see someone competing with them, somebody who's appointed, and immediately their response is, he is unqualified because he doesn't belong to our class. In other words, they have a low opinion of people. They don't see them as equals, people who don't have money. They have an elitist attitude to them. How can someone who has an elitist attitude be appointed to serve the very people he thinks lowly of? He thinks nothing of. And he uses them, or she even nowadays uses them just as pawns in media campaigns. Oh, bring this construction worker and let me take some pictures with him. Or let me bring this guy who's been, who's lost his job for 3 months in Detroit or something, and let me do a photo op with them because, this poor guy, he's lost his job, and when I come into office, this is the guy I'm going to look out for. Yeah, really, because it's worked this way for the last 50, 60 years, right? That these people are used in media campaigns just as pawns, and then they're tossed, and the corrupt politician does what he does. They do what they do, Look at all the media, even in the United States political, scene. Doesn't matter what party line, doesn't even matter. That stuff is all fluff anyway. If you look at politicians that are now in scandals of corruption, financial irregularity, you name it, something or another, and you go back and look at video footage of their, election campaign, you will always find them looking out for the little guy. Unanimous, you'll find them in order to gain substance with people, they're going to be right by them. And then you'll find they were the ones skimming money from the people, sucking the blood of the masses. That's what they were doing, This is embedded inside these ayat. وَنَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. Now, interestingly enough, before I go further, the Prophet that appointed Talut, he said, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَثْ. I am not picking Talut. Who's picking Talut? Allah is picking Talut. So when you say, how can he have authority? He doesn't even have money. Doesn't make any sense. When you say all of those things, whose will are you actually questioning? Allah's. And by the way, a prophet does not have to say this is from Allah. If a prophet said, Talut is your king, it is already understood that it's from Allah. A prophet, مَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. A prophet doesn't speak from whim. He speaks from revelation. Why? He went out of his way to say Allah is the one picking him. Why? Because he knows they don't really believe in my prophethood. These people have a surface level faith. Their religion is just for show. They don't actually believe in me, nor my instruction. So I have to further substantiate that what I'm saying is from Allah. Look, a prophet only has to tell people something is from Allah if he's talking to people who don't believe in him. People who don't believe in him, he has to tell them this is from Allah. People who believe in a prophet, every time the Rasul ﷺ says a hadith, does he have to say, yeah, this is from Allah? Every time he recites an ayah, does he have to say this is from Allah? No. We already believe him. We already believe him. He doesn't have to say that to us. So this prophet had to say it to them, because they don't really have iman. It's all a show. So, وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. No doubt about it, Allah has selected him over you. This time with the addition of alaykum. And this time a different word, istifa. Why? Because istifa comes from safwa. Safwa means purity, as-safa. Urdu mein hum istemal karte hain saaf shafaf. right? Clean. But it comes from the Arabic word safu. And safu or safa in Arabic is clean, pure, free of any embellishment, and no stains, no blemishes, nothing. And it's used, istifa is used for choice that is pure. When someone is chosen based on purity, then that you call istifa. And istafahu alaykum means he is pure and clearly you guys aren't. He is far purer than you people. There's another meaning of inna Allah astafahu, which is very powerful. And if you appreciate that, a new dimension to the ayah opens up. The word istifa is used when you make a choice that is purely your own. Nobody suggested it to you, nobody recommended it to you, it's entirely your own choice. And there were no factors involved in making that choice except your own personal decision. That's it. For example, just to make it silly and easy for you, if you're going to hire someone, or if I'm going to accept students at the institute, people apply and I select. The team selects students. Do they select them? Oh, I like his last name. This one should be in. Oh, this one, oh wow, look at that. His name rhymes with mine. I should pick. Is that how you pick a student? No, there are criteria, right? They meet the requirements and you pick them. So in other words, it's not up to my own personal decision. I don't have to explain it to anybody. If anybody gets accepted, I have to go ask my registration team, why did this one get accepted? And they have to explain it to me. This one has this kind of grades, this recommendation letter, these requirements. That's why he got accepted. If somebody got rejected, I say, why did you reject him? And they have to explain it to me. They can't say, well, when he came for the interview, he was wearing a green shirt. I hate green. That's why I didn't pick him. You can't do that. That's ijtiba. It's a different word. Istifa is when I go to the store and I'm buying candy, I'm looking at chocolate, I look at a Twix and I look at a Snickers and I look at a Kit Kat and I pick a Kit Kat. And my wife says, why didn't you pick Twix? And I say, well, istafaytuhu. It's my choice, man. I like Kit Kat. I can't explain the science behind that to you. I don't like the Twix. I like the Kit Kat. It's just entirely my own choice and I don't owe anybody an explanation. When I picked a student, when I hired someone, do I owe an explanation? Yes. When I pick, my favorite color, when I pick the candy, you have food in front of you, there's chicken in front of you, there's dal in front of you, you pick something. Do you have to explain yourself? No, it's your choice. That's your choice. That's istifa. Now why is that important to note? Because the Prophet says to them, Inna Allah astafahu alaykum, Allah has chosen him over you, and the word used is one in which you cannot ask why. The word used is the one where you cannot ask, how come? Hey, explain this choice to me. It doesn't make sense to me. So the word he chose was, Inna Allah astafahu alaykum. Allah chose him, and by the way, that's the kind of choice where you're supposed to shut up. That's the choice. Inna Allah astafahu alaykum. In fact, Allah who did that. And so I don't need to hear anything more from you. After the word istifa, it's like saying, I need to hear nothing from you. And by the way, additionally, on top of the fact that the case is already closed. Case is closed with the word istafa. On top of that, let me tell you, wazadahu, and Allah increased him. Allah could have said that he is more than you. He is more than you. But Allah said, Allah increased him. He says, Allah increased him. You know what that means? There's an unusual ability he has that is given by Allah more than any normal person. He has an unusual capability that has been increased by Allah. So he had some ability and Allah increased it. This happens in Quran. We have believers, Sahaba have Iman. Allah increases their Iman. Allah increased it. Meaning Iman they could not have even had on their own. Allah put in them. On top of the Iman they already had. So this is zadahu. He increased him. Allah added to him. In what? Bastatan. Basta means expanse, ability. Basit is something straightforward, laid out. And he says, zadahu bastatan fil ilmi wal jismi. He increased him in open, vast knowledge. Ard basita, they say for land that is far and wide, open, you can see miles and miles out. That's basit. Zadahu bastatan means his knowledge is vast and diverse and far-sighted. He could see, he can understand things from a very analytical angle and from multiple perspectives. There are people that are narrow-minded. We literally use the word narrow-minded. They have a narrow vision. He has a broad vision. He can think of a lot of things before he makes a decision. This is fil ilm. Then he says, wal jism. And Allah gave him this broad expanse. Allah extended him even physically. He is agile, he's quick, he's strong, he's flexible, he's got good fighting skills, he's got good, Physically, he's awesome, and Allah added to his awesomeness, and knowledge-wise, he was already knowledgeable, Allah added to his knowledge. This is why he's the right choice. Now you tell me, among you, are there any knowledgeable people? They say, yeah, we got knowledgeable people. Oh, can they fight? Can they bench press like this guy does? Can they do 300 push-ups? Can they do it? No, this guy is librarian. Okay, do you have any strong people among you? Yeah, we do. This guy is going to compete with his knowledge? No, the strong guy is actually pretty dumb. He just works out all day, he doesn't read, he can't even read. So either they have knowledgeable people that aren't strong, or they have strong people that aren't knowledgeable. What does Allah do for this one man? زَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. And Allah gave him broad knowledge. What kind of knowledge do you need in the military? You need knowledge of your own military, the capabilities. You need knowledge of the war, the battlefield, the strategy, the resources. You need to understand how economics work, how much resources we have, how much time, how long will we last on the battlefield, the back and the forth. You need to have intelligence on the military. How many things you have to understand? You have to have a broad education. And Allah increased him in that, and on top of that, above and beyond all of that, you need to be able to fire up your troops and be a source of motivation for them. So if the general of the army is a scrawny little guy, then the soldiers are not going to respect that guy. They're going to be like, this guy, he's going to tell us, look at his belly. Look at this guy, he's a twig himself, he's going to tell us. What military training has he ever done? He can't even go to the basic course. He wouldn't even get drafted. But when the man standing in front of you is the tallest among you, the strongest among you, literally physically the most fit among you, and the most knowledgeable among you, what does it do? It mobilizes the troops. He becomes a symbol of strength. He becomes a symbol of, just hope. Man, I want to be like him. He becomes a hero to the people. This is what Allah wanted. This is necessary in time of war. You need a hero. You need someone to look up to. زَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. Then Allah adds, وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. And Allah gives His kingdom to whoever He wants. It's in fact Allah that does that. In other words, by saying this, what Allah said is, you may not like this appointment. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Now if you recall, this is the last comment I have for you today. If you recall, they had political power. And they came to the Prophet asking for advice to legitimize their political power. But that still doesn't mean they've lost their political power. And you cannot imagine any scenario in which they would say, well, since Allah picked him, let's just let Talut go. They're not just going to give it up like that. It's not going to happen. But when Allah says, وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ, Allah gives His kingdom to whoever He wants. Allah has a plan by which no matter how much political power, no matter how much media campaign money, however many resources they have, they will not be able to hold on to their power. They will have to secede the power to Talut. Allah will give something to Talut alayhi salam. He will give something to him that will just trump all of their political strategy. That's coming in the next ayah. How did Talut get appointed? So here, وَاللَّهُ يُؤْتِي مُلْكَهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. And Allah is all expansive and fully knowledgeable. Allah knows entirely. And Allah knew the broad-minded and the long-term benefit of picking Talut over all of these people. Now just a little bit about the word Talut. Talut is, in the biblical, in the Arabic Bible at least, is Shaul. And the English translations of the Bible call him Saul. There's most opinions that they consider Talut Saul. And Talut, the word Talut, it can be argued two ways. It can be argued that it's non-Arab and made its way into the Arabic language, and it's a version of Shaul, and the Shim became a Ta, and it moved like that. And this is how words move into the Arabic language. Like David becomes Dawood, right? Goliath becomes Jalut, like Fa'ud. This pattern is actually very common, or Fa'ul even. So Talut could be like that. As it migrated into the Arabic language, it followed this pattern. Similarly, the chest, which is a sunduq in Arabic, but the chest of Musa alayhi salam, the box he was put into the river, and the chest that held the Tawrat in it is called Tabut, same pattern, right? So that could be one explanation of the name Talut, or it's some sighatul mubalagha. And sighatul mubalagha actually means a hyperbolized noun from tul. Tul means tall. Talut means extremely tall. I mean, the man was big. The man was big. He was, and they say, kana atwalahum. He was the tallest among the people. Like he stuck out from the crowd. He was massive. So that's the reason his name is Talut, perhaps. Okay. So this is the appointment made by Allah Azza wa Jal. And so inshallah ta'ala in our next halaqah we're going to look at what validated his appointment and how come they couldn't undo his appointment. Okay, so that will be ayah number 247. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's fine?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال لهم نبيهم إن آية ملكه أن يأتيكم التابوت فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة إن في ذلك لآية لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. This is ayah number 248 of Surah al-Baqarah. If you recall, the last conversation was about Talut and his appointment, and how the criteria for choosing him was discussed extensively, that the primary reason for which he's been chosen is Inna Allah astafahu alaykum. Allah has chosen him over you, there's no room for you to discuss it. But in case you are too blind to see it, وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ, that Allah has given him more capacity and He's opened up for him both in terms of knowledge and physical ability. Then on top of that, Allah Azza wa Jal gave a validation. And this is important on many levels. So the few things I'll talk to you about today, the first of them is, of course, that these are the Muslims of that time. The conversation is happening between the prophet of their time, which the Bible calls Samuel, and the Talut, his name is Saul. But the prophet that they're talking to, who gave them this news, his name is Samuel. He's not mentioned by name in Quran, alayhi salam. The people that are talking to him obviously believe in him. That's why they came to him. And they, even Allah calls him Nabiyuhum. He's their prophet. And that's why they came to him for religious validation. The thing is, when in the Quran you will find when prophets talk to non-believers, then non-believers ask for a miracle. Believers don't ask for a miracle. That's not the standard for believers, that is the standard for non-believers. Why? Because non-believers are skeptical of a prophet. They don't have any real confidence in what he has to say, so they have to be convinced through something amazing to see. But these people are, even though they are in the shell of believers, Allah Azza wa Jalla actually highlights the fact that deep down inside they don't believe, because they needed, in fact, a miracle to see, which is pretty telling about them. The only one case where you find that believers asked for a miracle is the followers of Isa alayhi salam. They asked for a miracle. They asked for a table spread from the sky, And when they asked for that, Isa alayhi salam got extremely angry. Even though they're good people, they're good Sahaba. They're called al-Hawariyun, they're talked about highly in the Quran. But Allah made sure to mention that passage. And even in that passage, when they asked for a miracle, Isa alayhi salam's first response was, Ittaqullah, have taqwa Allah. What are you saying? Why was Isa alayhi salam saying that? Because he is the last messenger to Bani Israel. And Bani Israel from the very beginning has been seeing miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. And he knows there are no more prophets coming from Bani Israel. He's the last of them. Because the one that will come after him is from Bani Ismail, not from Bani Israel. So he says, you people haven't left your ways until now? What's the matter with you people? Fine, Allah said I'm sending it, even to these people. But then the ayah that came for them it is probably, in my studies of all these years, I don't know of any ayah in the Quran that is more difficult, more harsh than that ayah. فَإِنِّي أُعَذِّبُ If anybody disbelieves after this ayah, after I send the table spread from the sky, فَإِنِّي أُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابًا لَا أُعَذِّبُهُ أَحَدًا مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ Then I am going to, no doubt about it, torture him with a torture that I have never tortured anybody else ever in any nation with. Why? Because they asked for a miracle. Now why is Allah so angry for them asking for a miracle? These are the ayat that tell us why. Because in the history of Bani Israel, they asked for miracles after believing in a prophet. How could you do that? But khair, there's a bigger social picture to understand. When this miracle arrives, whatever this miracle is, and we'll talk about that in a second, when this miracle comes, they're not the only ones who will see it. The others who will see it will be the entire population. And you remember how they themselves, they're the ones that have the political power, and they are only coming to the messenger, the prophet, for religious validation. But if the miracle comes and everybody sees it, then everybody's behind the prophet's decision, and they lose their political maneuvering to be able to go against that decision. Because everybody's on the same page now. The entire population says, you didn't see the miracle? Are you disbelieving in the miracle? Then they can't say anything anymore. So they could hide their kufr, which they have, clearly. They can hide their disbelief. But after this miracle, they couldn't do so anymore. So now what is this miracle? وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ, their prophet said to them, إِنَّ آيَةَ مُلْكِهِ, that the miraculous sign of his valid kingdom. Whose valid kingdom? Talut. That Talut is legitimately your king, your governor, your general in the army. أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ التَّابُوتِ, that without any difficulty, the chest will come back to you. Now what in the world is this chest, tabut? You'll notice words that come from the Semitic languages into Arabic, they'll take this form. Dawood, Jalut, Tabut, Taghut. There's a particular form that they follow. This word, as opposed to sunduq, which is the Arabic word. Tabut is a chest, but the word in its origin is actually from the Hebrew language. And Tabut is a large chest that they used to have. It was part of the history of Bani Israel. They say that even nowadays, many variations of the Orthodox Judaism believe that it actually still exists. Some of them believe that it exists in the foundation of Al-Aqsa. And some of their extreme movements, they actually wish to one day demolish Aqsa so they can find the chest. So some of the Dome of the Rock and all of it, they want to tear it down and find this chest. They have a lot of affinity towards this chest of theirs. Now what is inside this chest? They say it has the asa, the staff of Musa in it, alayhi salam. They say that, the tablets that were revealed, that were then broken, the tablets are inside there. What used to come down for them in the desert? Manna and salwa, right? And then, so salwa is the bird, but man at least were the seeds. So they had a bag of seeds that's just as a reminder of what Allah used to send for them from the sky. So they have a bag of that in there. So they have things from reminders from the time of Musa and Harun alayhim salam. Now this almost became their qibla for a long time. They would keep it in front of them when they would pray, the full congregational prayer. When they would offer sacrifices, they would keep it in front of them. When the entire population would travel, they would have the first, caravan, lots of animals. The first animal would have this in front for blessing purposes. So they had this very strong emotional attachment to this one thing. You can think of it like Hijr Aswad for us. You can think of it like that. It's got a lot of value to us because the Prophet ﷺ gave it value, right? And it was near and dear to him. So, and through him, it's near and dear to us. Now imagine the Hijr Aswad is stolen. What happened was when these people when they were invaded, the Israeliyun were invaded many times. Banu Israel were taken over many times. And when they were at war with some of the mushrikun, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, it so happens that the tabut was taken as a symbol of further humiliation. It was taken from them. And they took it to Iraq, wherever they took it. And now they have no chance of seeing it again, because these people we already led. وَقَدْ أُخْرِجْنَا مِنْ دِيَارِنَا وَأَبْنَائِنَا. We've been taken out of our homes. Our sons have been taken from us. We have no power. Give us a general so we can fight back. So they have no hope of getting this chest back. Now it so happens that Allah Azza wa Jalla in this ayah says the sign of the kingdom, the legitimate kingdom of Talut is going to be that the chest will come back on its own to you. You won't have to fight to get it back, it'll come back on its own. Now how in the world is it going to come back on its own? Now by the way, Ja'a yaji'u, when something comes with a struggle, something big comes, something comes through difficulty. When something comes easy, smooth, no problem, then ata ya'ti, an ya'tiyakum at-tabut. It won't even come with a struggle. It'll just stroll right back to you. Now it so happened, the mushrikun that had it, Allah Azza wa Jal made it so wherever they put it, a disaster would happen. A disease would strike, lightning would strike, an earthquake would happen. They would move the chest, some other disease starts, some other lightning, earthquake, hurricane problems. These mushrikun started believing that the box is what? Is cursed. So they decided we have to have a solution. They took the chest and they put it on a cart, like a bullock cart. Right, so the bull is pulling the cart and they put it on the cart and without a driver, they just let it go where it goes. We don't want to deal with it. And it actually strolled back right to Bani Israel. Allah Azza wa Jal guided it right back to them. So it came back to them miraculously. أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمُ التَّابُوتُ فِيهِ سَكِينَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. In it there is tranquility, peace that comes to you from your master. So that taboot that comes to you will give you what? Sakina. Some miraculous way of giving you sakina. Now what are they getting ready for? They're getting ready for war. They're getting ready for war. You will notice in the most difficult times of war that are described in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal will talk about sakina and itminanul qulub. He'll talk about it in this passage. He'll talk about it in Anfal. He'll talk about it in Surah Al-Fath. Over and over and over again. Same thing over and over again. You know? When he talks about it in Ali Imran, when the Uhud is talked about, same thing comes up again. Allah is saying that the believers, when they are put in that situation, the most important weapon that they will need to be able to be victorious will be sakina. If they don't have sakina, they cannot succeed. One of the worst instances of battle in the life of the Prophet ﷺ is Uhud. Things got really bad. And now when things got really bad, Allah Azza wa Jalla, and Allah describes, look, you need to regain your sakina, like I gave you before. The Sahaba before Badr, now Uhud is talked about, but Allah reminds them about Badr. Remember what I did for you at Badr? Well, what did He do for us at Badr? He made us fall asleep. يَغْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ أَمَنَةً نُعَاسًا يَغْشَى طَائِفَةً مِّنْكُمْ. There was a peaceful sleep that you just passed out, dozed off, that took over a group among you. So when you woke up, it was like the best power nap you ever had. And you were tearing it up in the battlefield. So now فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة. And it has remains of what the family of Harun and the family of Musa, their descendants, what they've been preserving for all this time. It's carrying all of those things in it, the remains, some remnants of their beautiful legacy. You know, they say some even say it had the ring of Sulaiman in it. Alayhi salam. So things like that inside it. Tahmiluhul malaika, angels are carrying it. It also means it will come back to you as carried by angels, meaning there's some unseen, visualized angelic protection and guidance of the bullock cart that's bringing it back to you. Tahmiluhul malaika, it's actually angels carrying it. Inna fi dhalika, and by the way, in ancient times, if you see even people going in a caravan with riders, they will get robbed. Now if a cart is going by with an animal and merchandise in the back without a rider, what chances are it's going to cross through multiple lands and not get robbed? Subhanallah. That's why tahmiluhul malaika is important. Angels are carrying it. Inna fi dhalika, then at the end of it, inna fi dhalika la ayatan lakum in kuntum mu'minin. In all of that, there truly is a miraculous sign for you if in fact you've been believers. If in fact you've been believers. In other words, the word in here is a pretty strong, pretty stern indication that they aren't actually believers. In kuntum mu'minin. You know? And their iman is not what it's supposed to be. So the best of them and the worst of them are being given a pretty stern, reminder through in kuntum mu'minin. You know? Now this kind of language is also used in another battle situation. It's used in Uhud. And there Allah says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَا إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Don't worry, don't lose heart, don't be grieved. You are supreme, if in fact you've been believers. And there Allah Azza wa Jal gave a different reality, and that was, look, in Uhud things went really bad, but still, the fact that even after the battle is over and you have lost some key Sahaba and the Prophet was almost killed sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you before this battle had something and after this battle have something that the enemy never had and will never have, which is what? Iman. And because of your Iman, whether you win or lose, you are always going to be supreme. Antumul a'laun. In kuntum, if you have Iman. If you have Iman. Now everybody else fights a battle, and they fight a battle and they say, we win if we gain territory, we lose if we don't gain territory. If we survive, then we've won. If we kill the other, we've won. If they kill us, then we've lost. But the believer's attitude towards what does it mean to survive, what does it mean to succeed, is different. It actually is a matter of Iman. If we went in with Iman, and by the end of it we still had iman, or we died with iman. Either way, ihdal husnayayn, like Surah At-Tawbah calls it, one of the two most beautiful things that can happen. That's the attitude of a believer. Why this is important is because then our attitude, our mentality isn't about what we will gain in dunya. We will put our best efforts in dunya, but our expectations will always be in the akhirah. And our efforts, the purpose of our efforts is to further iman. The purpose of our efforts is not to further dunyawi things. Subhanallah, this is an unparalleled balance that no other nation has. Either people do things only for the akhirah, or or they only think about spiritual things, or they only think about worldly things. Our religion makes us do the best worldly things while only interested in the other worldly things. It expects excellence in both. Subhanallah. It's a very powerful attitude that brings about goodness in this world and goodness in the next. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, I conclude today's ayah discussion. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.